My name is Tatum, and I'm 32, living in a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio, where the streets are lined with modest ranch-style homes and kids ride bikes until the streetlights flicker on. I'm a marketing manager at a mid-sized firm downtown, the kind of job that keeps me on my toes, pitching campaigns, meeting deadlines, and dreaming up ways to make brands pop. I love my work, but what I really want, deep down, is a family of my own. I can still hear the laughter of my younger cousins from summer barbecues at my parents' house, their sticky fingers grabbing at my skirt, begging for another story. Those memories make my heart ache for kids of my own, but my husband, Declan, has other plans. Declan's a logistics supervisor, always crunching numbers and talking about stability. He's got this vision of us owning a big, beautiful house before we even think about kids. "We need a foundation, Tatum," he says like a mantra every time I bring up starting a family. We've been married for just over a year, and I'm starting to see cracks in the life we're building. Back when we were dating, I admired Declan's determination. He grew up in a family that hit hard times when his dad lost his job, and that fear of instability drives him. But now, his stubbornness feels like a wall between us. I'll suggest something, maybe a weekend trip to recharge, and he'll brush it off, saying, "We can't afford to waste money." Yet, he doesn't blink at dropping cash on beers with his coworkers at the local sports bar. It's not just Declan. His parents, who live 10 minutes away in a tidy split-level house, are always in our business. Every Sunday, we're expected at their place for dinner, and every time, the conversation turns to grandkids. "Tatum, you're not getting any younger," Declan's mom will say, her fork hovering over her plate. "When are we going to hear some good news?" Declan just sits there, sipping his coffee, letting me field the questions alone. It's like I'm the only one in the hot seat, even though he's the one dead set on waiting. I want to scream, "Talk to your son," but I bite my tongue, feeling the weight of their expectations settle on my shoulders. I grew up in a family that scraped by but always made room for love. My parents worked long hours, my dad at a factory, my mom as a nurse's aide, but they never let us feel like we were missing out. They taught me to work hard and speak my mind, but with Declan, I feel like I'm shrinking. I've been in a relationship before where I felt ignored, and I swore I'd never let that happen again. Yet here I am, married to someone who seems to think my dreams are just noise. I want our marriage to be a partnership where we listen to each other, where my voice matters. But lately, I'm starting to wonder if Declan even hears me at all. The tension in our house grew thicker with every passing week. Declan was obsessed with saving money, always harping on about cutting corners. "Tatum, don't leave the lights on," he'd snap if I lingered too long in the kitchen. "And go easy on the hot water, we're not made of money." I'd nod, turning off the faucet, but it stung. He acted like I was reckless, but I was the one clipping coupons and skipping takeout to pad our savings. Meanwhile, I'd catch him coming home late, smelling faintly of craft beer and wings, admitting he'd been out with his buddies from work. "It's just networking," he'd say, shrugging it off. Networking? I wanted to ask how blowing $50 on IPAs was helping us get that dream house he kept promising. Sundays at his parents' house were even worse. Their dining room, with its floral wallpaper and creaky oak table, felt like a courtroom. Declan's mom would lean forward, her eyes fixed on me, and say, "A woman's place is in the home, Tatum. You're working so much. How do you expect to raise a family?" I'd force a smile, my stomach twisting, while Declan stared at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. His dad would chime in, "It's been a year. We're ready to spoil some grandkids." I wanted to shout that it wasn't my choice to wait, that Declan was the one slamming the brakes on our future. But I'd just say something vague like, "We're working on it," and feel the room close in. One Sunday, after a particularly long week at work, I couldn't take it anymore. Declan's mom had just finished a lecture about how my job was distracting me from being a good wife. "Maybe if you stayed home more, Declan would be ready for kids," she said, her tone sharp. I set my fork down, my hands trembling. "With all due respect," I said, my voice louder than I intended, "Declan's the one who wants to wait. He's got this idea we need a house first, and he won't budge. If you want grandkids, maybe talk to him instead of pointing fingers at me." The table went silent. Declan's dad coughed awkwardly, and his mom's mouth tightened into a thin line. Declan just glared at me, like I'd betrayed some unspoken rule. Later, as we drove home, I couldn't hold back. Why'd he let them put this all on me? I demanded, staring at him in the driver's seat. You sit there, saying nothing, while they act like I'm the problem. Declan gripped the wheel tighter. They're just trying to help, Tatum. And you want a house too, don't you? Eating at their place saves us money. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Saves us money? What about your bar tabs? Or the cigarettes you sneak when you think I don't notice? If you're so serious about saving, why am I the only one making sacrifices? He didn't answer, just stared at the road, and I felt a familiar ache, being unheard again. I told him flat out, I'm done with these Sunday dinners. I can't keep sitting there, taking their judgment, while you pretend everything's fine. Declan looked stunned, but I didn't care. Something had to give, and I wasn't going to keep bending. A couple of months later, my world shifted in a way I didn't see coming. My uncle, a quiet man who'd built a small empire of hardware stores across Ohio, passed away. He'd always been a bit of a mystery, lived in a sprawling house outside Dayton, threw lavish parties, but kept his family at arm's length. I hadn't seen him in years, but when the lawyer called, I learned he'd left me a potential inheritance, $920,000, tied up in his estate. It sounded like a fortune, but there was a catch: debts, property disputes, and legal tangles that made it more burden than blessing. I invited the lawyer to our apartment to go over the details, asking Declan to give us privacy. He grumbled, clearly curious, but stepped out, muttering something about grabbing a coffee. Sitting at our kitchen table, the lawyer laid it all out. My uncle's sons and daughters had already renounced the inheritance, unwilling to deal with the mess. The $920,000 was real, but after paying off loans, taxes, and maintenance on his properties, there'd be little left. I listened, my mind racing. This wasn't just about money. It was a chance to think about what I wanted, separate from Declan's plans. He'd been so controlling, from our budget to our future, and I was tired of it. The meeting felt like a small rebellion, a moment where I could make a decision without his voice in my ear. When Declan came back, he was different, almost too interested. Your uncle is loaded, huh? He said, trying to sound casual. I brushed it off, not ready to share. But I could see the wheels turning in his head, and it made me uneasy. He'd never cared much about my family before, but now he was asking questions, fishing for details. I kept things vague, saying the lawyer was still sorting it out. Deep down, I knew why I didn't trust him with the truth. Declan had a way of twisting things to fit his goals, and I wasn't about to let him hijack this too. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of control, like I could protect something that was mine alone. But I had no idea how far he'd go to take it away. 5 months later, Declan came to me with a strange glint in his eyes. I've got something to show you, he said, grabbing his car keys. I followed, curious but wary, as we drove through a newer subdivision on the edge of town. The houses were bigger here, with manicured lawns and 2-car garages. When we pulled up to one, I was confused until Declan's parents stepped out, beaming. Welcome to your new home, his dad said, like it was a done deal. My stomach dropped. What is this? I asked, turning to Declan. He shrugged, casual as ever. It's a one-family house. Me and my dad pooled our money. You'll love living with my parents. It'll bring us closer. I couldn't believe it. After everything, my refusal to keep visiting his parents, the fights about his control, he'd gone behind my back and bought a house for us to live with them. You did this without asking me? I said, my voice shaking. His mom jumped in, accusing me of being ungrateful. You're always blaming Declan for not having kids, Tatum. Maybe if you worked less and focused on family, we'd be further along. I shot Declan a look, waiting for him to defend me, but he just stood there. That's when he dropped the bomb. Your uncle's inheritance, $920,000, right? Just use it to pay us back for the house. Problem solved. I felt like I'd been punched. He'd assumed my inheritance was his to spend, without a single conversation. My anger boiled over, but I kept my voice steady. That money's not what you think, Declan. I renounced it. There were debts, legal issues. It wasn't worth the trouble. His face went pale, his parents frozen in shock. You what? He stammered. I didn't stop. And even if I hadn't, it's my decision, not yours. You don't get to plan my life without me. Then he pulled out a pre-filled divorce form, his name already signed. If you won't live with my parents and use the money, we're done, he said coldly. I took the form, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. Fine, I said. Divorce it is. I turned and walked away, leaving Declan and his parents standing in front of their dream house. Back at our apartment, I signed the form and filed it the next day. I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was reclaiming my life. Declan's betrayal, his assumption that he could control me, was the final straw. I felt a strange calm, like the weight of his expectations had finally lifted. Packing up my life wasn't easy. I went to a home improvement store, grabbed cardboard boxes, and hired a moving company to help me relocate to a small apartment across town. Every item I packed, dishes, books, my old sketchbooks from college, felt like a step toward freedom, but also a reminder of what I was leaving behind. I cried as I folded my clothes, not because I wanted Declan back, but because I believed in us once. Still, I knew this was right. I couldn't stay in a marriage where my voice was drowned out, where my dreams were dismissed. Declan didn't make it easy. One evening, as I packed, he showed up, banging on the door. I'd put the chain lock on, just in case. Tatum, let me in, he shouted. I don't want a divorce. I stood firm, my voice calm through the crack in the door. You signed the form, Declan. You made your choice. He switched tactics, demanding to know why I'd given up the inheritance. I explained it clearly. My uncle's money came with strings, debts, property disputes, legal battles. His family had renounced it, and so had I. You heard half the story and ran with it, I said. You bought that house without asking me, assuming I'd bail you out. That's not partnership. He stood there, speechless, his face a mix of regret and disbelief. I told him to stay with his parents for a few days and shut the door. At work, I was upfront about the divorce. My boss, who'd once tried to mediate between Declan and me, was sympathetic, and my coworkers, many of whom had danced at our wedding, rallied around me. But Declan didn't let it go quietly. One afternoon, he stormed into my office, red-faced, in front of everyone. You're telling people I'm the bad guy, he yelled. They think you got some big inheritance, and I'm the jerk for wanting it. I stayed calm, even as my colleagues stared. You made assumptions, Declan. You didn't listen. That's why we're here. He left, humiliated, and I later heard he quit his job, unable to handle the gossip. In the midst of it all, something unexpected happened. Ezra, a graphic designer on my team, approached me during a lunch break. He was kind, with warm eyes and a quiet strength I'd always noticed but never dwelled on. Tatum, he said, hesitating, I've admired you for a long time. Your strength, the way you stand up for yourself, it's inspiring. I'd love to build something real with you, a life where we listen to each other. His words hit me like sunlight after a storm. Ezra had been through a divorce himself, leaving a marriage where he felt controlled, and his honesty made me feel seen. For the first time in months, I felt hope, not just for moving on, but for a future where I could be myself. As I settled into my new apartment, I realized this wasn't just about leaving Declan. It was about choosing me, my voice, my dreams, my happiness. The road ahead wasn't clear, but I felt ready, stronger than I'd ever been. I was done letting others write my story. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and the fight to find my voice. If my story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every choice we make, every stand we take, is a step toward a life that's truly ours. Keep chasing your truth, and I'll meet you where the next chapter begins.